Hello, everybody. My name is Bruce Montgomery, and this is my colleague, Tracy Priest.
Hello, everyone.
And we're with The Road to Retail. On our podcast, Tracy and I hope to offer insights and ideas for how emerging small and challenger CPG, consumer packaged goods, brands can establish and grow their business.
Bruce and I have been working in CPG commercial operations for over 30 years, working on brands of all sizes. By commercial operations, we mean all aspects involved in establishing and growing brands across channels and platforms. On our show, we bring on guests that are brand founders, leaders, investors, as well as all kinds of suppliers to these emerging brands that are subject matter experts to share their unique insights with the audience.
To keep up with the show, please follow the Road to Retail podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Leave us a review and consider sharing the show with a friend or colleague that may benefit from the content. You can also check out our website at www.road2retail.com and follow The Road to Retail on LinkedIn. Let's get to today's episode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Road to Retail. Bruce, great to see you, my friend.
Hello, Tracy. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. We've got a great episode today. I'm excited, but before we get into our guest, why don't you tell us about today's sponsor?
Gladly. Today's sponsor is Pathfinder's Advertising. When considering an agency partner, we'd suggest you to consider Pathfinder's Advertising. For over 45 years, they've been helping CPG brands with business building, multi-channel campaigns for emerging brands and beyond. They're a diverse group of integrated marketing subject matter experts committed to helping you get the most out of your marketing efforts. From package design to digital marketing to driving your social media efforts, they are always trying to do things the smart way the first time. And most importantly, Pathfinders will have your back if and when the unexpected arises. They're committed, down to earth, and principled. They work hard, and when you partner with them, Pathfinders will show you they stay ready to rise to every occasion. There's nothing they can say that will convince you to work with them. All they can do is show you when you give Pathfinders the chance. To learn more or reach out to them, go to www.pathfind.com. www.pathfind.com. Thanks, Pathfinders, for supporting the show. All right, Tracy, tell us about today's guest.
Absolutely. So today we have on our show Tanay Kothari. He is the founder of Floret, a deduction management platform, as I would call it. So welcome to the show, Tanay. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, great to be with you both, Tracy and Bruce. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So as we dive in here, why don't you tell our audience just a little bit about yourself and your background and how you got to be, the founder of Floret?
Absolutely. So I started Floret in 2022. We're a team of software engineers, salespeople, CPG industry professionals working together to build new finance software to help brands do their best so they can focus on things other than fighting deductions. I started my career as a consultant. I worked with a bunch of food and beverage brands, kind of got put on those matters, and I was the data analyst in the back room looking at all of this information that these brands were confronted with. And I couldn't believe, from my vantage point, all the different stuff that they had to look at. And it exposed me to the problems of deductions in particular. You'd have these giant back rooms pouring through all of these documents, just trying to figure out where all the money had gone. So I knew that was a problem. I'm a Bay Area native. You might not have been able to guess that from the background. And I ended up working at a number of tech companies and learning how to build product, learning how to work with engineers. And Floret sort of, for me, represented a logical next step to take the stuff that I had seen before, clearly this glaring problem in this industry, and the experience that I had gained through the stuff I'd done in my career to try to build a solution to really serve the brands that we work with today, and hopefully many more in the future.
Hey, Tanay, one thing, because our audience is made up of, a lot of founders and leaders of small, challenger, emerging brands, and some of these brands are really just getting started outside of maybe their home market. Do you mind kind of giving us the elementary school definition of what a deduction is and why they even happen? I think that'll set the table a little better for at one time Tracy and I were rookies, as were you. So the people that might not have your depth of understanding or ours, tell them, what is a deduction, how does it happen, and why is it so irritating?
Yeah, of course. So deductions are charges that are taken by retailers and distributors for the most part that your brand will invariably have to work with in order to get their product out to market. If you think about all the different ways that your product sort of touches different components of a supply chain as well as, activity in the store itself, there are so many different reasons why your brand might incur additional costs related to promotions that you would have agreed to, related to advertising deals and all the contracts that you sign up with, as well as all the logistics types of charges, shorted product, spoiled product. And so chargebacks, which come off the back end of a check or a remittance payment, are transactions that allow the distributor or the retailer to charge appropriately for all these different types of costs. Now, the way that it's set up, you might get paid, you might have invoices worth $1,000, and there might be, $500, $600 worth of chargebacks that are $5 here, $10 here, $20 there, all for such a different number of reasons. And that's what really creates the amount of complexity for brand founders that say, well, hey, I shipped out $1,000 of product. Why is the amount of money that I got nowhere close to what I had expected? And so chargebacks and accurately fighting chargebacks means that you need to have knowledge of all of these different areas where your product is interacting with the supply chain as well as with promotional activity at stores. And that's what creates the big mess that really affects the experience of brand founders. And it's not only just losing money, it means you're slower to get paid. It means you have to spend all this time looking at documentation. And that's what makes it really frustrating.
Well, and I think one of the things as we get into the discussion that you just hit on that I would encourage the audience to keep in mind is a firm like Tanay's can save you not only a lot of money because he's going to help you recover it, a ton of time.
Mhm.
Because if you haven't done this before, you think that one, you'll think everyone's honest. Sadly, they're not. And it is complicated to get your product from your contract manufacturer to your various retailers through the supply chain and onto the shelf and have everything be accurate. And if you're a small firm trying to bootstrap everything and you think you're going to fight chargebacks and deduction, that is all you're going to do. That is all you're going to do. As a matter of fact, there are some retailers that will remain unnamed that are probably having meetings right now, inventing new fees and fines and way to ding their supplier base. And that is sad but true. Tanay, so let's set the table here a little bit more. Can you please tell the audience, kind of, without getting too technical, because then everyone's head will explode, exactly what Floret does and how it can help a brand founder or leader manage their brand and company and chase down these things your company excels at?
For sure. Floret is a piece of financial software. What our software is able to do is ingest all of these different documents that come in as chargebacks. If you work with a distributor or a retailer, you'll get dozens and dozens of forms for all these various charges that have been levied onto your brand, right? They can be, sometimes you get a form for 40 cents because of a spoilage charge. And sometimes it's all the way up to thousands of dollars that you've been audited multiple years after a supposed event took place. So there's enough of a hassle to just gather all of these documents and interpret and understand them. And so our software is able to take in these documents, classify them correctly according to the type of charge that they are, and then use validation logic to try and figure out whether these charges should have happened or shouldn't have happened. And if you think about the different types of charges that come in, as I said, there's some that have to do with logistics. There's some that have to do with promotions. There's some that have to do with standard contract terms that you would have had to agree to in the first place. And so, it can be pretty onerous for an individual operator, let alone, someone managing a small brand themselves, to have the collective expertise, not only of supplier operations, but also these distributor and retailer policies, portals, deadlines that they would need to fight these effectively. And so what our software platform is able to do is read all of these charges, interpret the data, compare them against the terms that had been agreed to, and dispute them to maximize your chance of getting as much money back as possible.
There you go.
Sign me up. When I hear about getting money back, I'm interested. Tracy?
So yeah, so Tanay, on that, maybe I hate to throw out numbers, and if you don't want to speak to it, but how much money did you save your brands last year?
Yep. Last year, we saved our brands over $3 million. This is bottom line revenue going right back in their pockets that, they wouldn't have been able to find before. And this year, it'll be an even larger number with even more brands, larger and smaller. And so, we're pretty excited about that. And the other number that we're really excited about is that we delivered it at over a 3x ROI for our customers.
Nice.
So if you're a brand that's paying a couple $100 a month for Floret and you're getting $1,000 a month back or more, in addition to taking a bunch of work off of your plate, that ends up being a pretty fruitful dynamic for both parties involved. And that's where we want to get to with every customer to make it a no-brainer.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you kind of touched on this a little bit, but is there anything else you wanted to elaborate on kind of the backstory of Floret? And I know you kind of worked in the back room, you said, but maybe if there's anything else you want to elaborate on the backstory of why you started Floret, or maybe some of your past experience of, I know you worked in a couple very large tech companies, but anything else you wanted to add to that, to the story?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with our team, right? And what I think is unique about our team, and that's a real depth of CPG industry expertise. So really critical to the founding of Floret, even though these team members may not have been there all along since the start. We have folks on our team that have worked at the distributors for many years. We have folks at our team that have been effectively the heads of sales for 8-figure CPG brands. When you work with Floret, you sort of benefit from the halo effect of working with people that have been really, really effective in their respective niches within the CPG industry. And so what's really enabled us over the journey of Floret to scale as a pretty small team has been the fact that we've hired people with this deep, deep industry expertise. And that's also something that I observed at my previous roles. When you work at tech companies, you work with people that are really specialized engineers that know how to do these tasks and that have worked on it for a number of years. And so certainly, I think there's a level of dynamism in Silicon Valley and my past experiences that I try to bring into the CPG industry. But I never approached it as a pure play. I'm a tech person. I'm going to try to solve the problem of this industry by applying my framework and my logic. It's always been about trying to hire people from within the CPG industry that have this deep subject matter expertise and put them front and center so that they're solving the types of problems that they've already spent years and years thinking about.
Mm-hmm. And that's such a huge benefit for your clients. They're not only paying for the technology, but they're paying for the industry expertise, which is just awesome.
Yeah, it's great. And sometimes people don't even believe I run Floret because the industry expertise of other people on our team is so strong that I've been approached a couple times by people saying, "Hey, Tanay, I talked to your boss," and it's referring to other people on team Floret. And I really love it because there's such a high level of ownership and such a great representation of the Floret brand by people that have that level of domain knowledge and can supercharge all of our customers that they work with.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome. Bruce?
Well, that's also great that you possess one of the rare traits of a founder, and that's humility. I've met a ton of people that if someone mistook that they were not the boss, they would immediately have some sort of a temper tantrum. So I salute you. So Tanay,
Yep.
Tell the folks at a high level, you've told us about your services, but two things here. One, tell us how they get started working with you. Because if I'm a founder, I'm like, man, I'm interested. This guy can help me. I don't have to sort through this. But do you need all kinds of data links into my company, or do I just send you shoe boxes full of forms and you guys sort it out? So that's one thing. How does a brand get set up working with you? And then the second thing is, when we were doing our pre-call before coming on and doing the interview, one of the things that struck us was how you guys are different. So talk a little bit also about how you guys are different versus other potential solutions out there.
Yeah. So one of the things that we really worked on dialing in as we started building Floret was to try to make it as seamless as possible for brands to get started, right? We're replacing a practice at companies that often is many, many people in a meeting, sometimes several times a week, or a back office that is manually handling hundreds or thousands of different transactions. And so anything that sort of copies that is not a good use of the brand's time. People want to think about deductions as little as possible and just know that they're being handled properly. And so with Floret, in order to get started, all we need are links into the various portals and email chains where these different deduction backups live. And we've built the automations that are necessary to extract all of those details. So we offer any brand a free pilot where we can actually tell them how much money we think we can get back for them, because we have it so dialed in where we can pull in their historical data. We can look at the distribution of the types of charges, this many logistics fees, this many early payment fees, this many promotional fees, and we can size it out for a brand with very little intervention on their part. And so we're really proud of the fact the average Floret brand can onboard with us in about 1.5 weeks. They hop on about 2 or 3 calls. Everything else is asynchronous. And by week 3, we're filing disputes for this customer. We're going back in time, pulling stuff from months ago and putting those disputes in as well, and starting to get money back for them in month 2. And I would say this is actually one of the biggest differentiators that we have with a lot of other customers, is the time with competitors rather, is the time to value. Folks that work with Floret start seeing money back in their pockets really early. And we go as far back in time as these various distributors and retailers permit. So for a KeHE, that's 6 months back. For a UNFI, 12 months. For a Target, 18 months. And then the other thing that really sets us apart, we are not just a dispute service. We are a financial management platform. And what I mean by that is Floret has direct integrations into QuickBooks, into NetSuite, and into other software platforms that companies would commonly use. And so not only is Floret something that's putting money back in the pockets of customers, it's actually something that's saving AR teams a lot of time, because these hundreds and hundreds of deductions that come in are things that they would manually be coding in their accounting system. And with the benefit of our integration, we can instantly sync that information into their accounting system. And so I believe, having all of those different functions in one platform makes us stand out relative to the other solutions in this space.
So, Tanay, one point of clarification here. When you guys get set up with a customer, so if you're representing Bruce and Tracy's excellent skincare company,
Yep.
Once we're set up with you, if there's a dispute with, say, KeHE, are we now out of the picture, or does any commentary feedback from them, it comes into us, but it passes right through and goes to Floret to be handled? Or do we have to kind of be a middleman and go, oh, this thing's still not resolved, and then bounce it over to you guys?
Yeah, great question. So during onboarding, we work with you to make sure that we have all the material that we would need from your team in order to be able to carry out these disputes autonomously. We say that we offer full cycle deductions management. And what that means is we're going to take on the disputes. We will file the disputes. We will do follow-ups as well. And the only time that the brand itself would be involved again is if, in our judgment, some type of escalation is required to clear the dispute. So if
Interesting.
a distributor comes back to us and says, well, this is going to require us to reach out to the end retailer. This is going to require that you talk to Whole Foods about this deduction because it was from them and it just happened to come through the distributor, then that would be an instance where we would work with your team. And this actually highlights another critical distinction, which is that there are fully AI-powered deduction services today. We're proud that AI plays a big role in automating a lot of our functions internally, but we have a disputes team at Floret of folks that have been doing this for years and years and years, that are happy to hop on a call with you, that are happy to produce reports for you, that you can actually speak and interact with, and that can make sure that your disputes happen as seamlessly as possible. So we're excited about all these AI dispute competitors and everything else, but we're pretty insistent on a combination of AI as well as a disputes team at Floret that is going to be your conduit and make sure that these things get handled in a timely way.
And that's a huge differentiation Huge.
Yeah. So,
We
so
have,
Tanay, one other follow up before I bounce this over to Tracy. In all your experience in years doing this, tell the folks what's the number one dispute that comes up the most? Is it damages? Is it miscoded paperwork? Is it, you know, the account says this promo ran and you guys and the client says no, it didn't? I mean, what's to the people just really getting going with an emerging brand, what's Tanay's number one watch out? Man, when you see X, hold on to your hat.
Yep. So by far, the deduction category that yields the largest number of disputable claims
Is
is,
miscellaneous.
yeah, it's actually it's short shipments. So it's the distributors or
Interesting.
retailers saying you didn't deliver to us the amount of product that we had invoiced for. And this usually requires the brand to have a pretty dialed in process in order to dispute these claims. You need to produce bills of lading, in some cases, packing slips, other pieces of documentation. And it's a common example of something where if you're an earlier stage brand, you maybe just aren't dialed in on the process of keeping all of this documentation, making sure that bills of lading have been signed, hanging on to all these different reference emails. And so one of the things is, at Floret, obviously, we want to get as much money back for you as possible. But we always tell brands we would love just as much if we got less money back for you because you weren't even being deducted for these things in the first place. And so we really work with customers to say, what are the right practices to put in place? What's the documentation that you need? What should you be asking for from your cross-functional partners on the operations and logistics side to try and reduce the prevalence of these charges in the first place? But I would say by far, it's all in the logistics and shipment category where there's the greatest amount of room for discrepancies that lead to disputable deductions.
kind of like you get fined for being early delivery, you get fined for being late. You have to be exactly on time, correct?
So those are another late delivery is another one where we see some amount. It's everything. There's overship as well. So we're talking about situations where for the most part you didn't ship them enough product, but if you ship them too much product, then they get to take in some cases a 35 to 40% discount on all the product that you overship them. And so in any direction where there's a discrepancy, you can just imagine the types of brands that maybe you interact with that are very early stage, suddenly having to become domain experts on all of these logistics issues that are not even visible to them. And that's what creates all the ambiguity that Floret, really tries to help brands resolve as much as possible.
And that's the game, ambiguity. Great. So, Tanay, talk to us a little bit about can Floret also help with deductions on Amazon and other online retailers?
Yeah, we're very proud of the fact that, as sort of a new feature offering, we're able to help brands on the Amazon Vendor Central and Amazon Seller Central side as well. This means that those chargebacks are brought into Floret. Our team is able to help dispute them. These can sync into your QuickBooks and your NetSuite as well for the financial reconciliation standpoint. I would say, though, at the same time, our sweet spot is brick and mortar retail, customers that sell into the big box retailers as well as through the distributors. And I think that's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck working with Floret. And so if any brand has an overwhelmingly large DTC presence relative to brick and mortar retail, there are other solutions in the market that might be better for them. And we're always happy to make those recommendations too.
Awesome. I love that. Bruce?
Interesting. So, Tanay, you hit on this a moment ago, but I'd like you to just give you the chance to say it again because it sounded almost like one of those too good to be true. Can you just tell the folks again quickly how Floret integrates with a brand or a emerging company's system, such as their accounting software? Because as you know, these folks are, juggling chainsaws and wearing 15 hats, and these small firms really don't have the appetite for more software and easy integration. Can you kind of just allay some concerns? Because you rattled off some of the big platforms, and if those are simply, I don't know what the right technology term is, but if they just plug in and you're cranking in 3 weeks, you're getting money back. You want to just run through that high level one more time because that was really important. I don't want people to miss it.
Absolutely. So we're really proud of the fact that Floret is not just a dispute management service. It's not just something that's going to put money back in your pocket, but it's a platform where, we want teams to spend time using it because it can save them time that they would be using doing all of these other associated business functions. So one of the biggest pain points for accounting, finance, and AR teams today is you get these hundreds of different deductions, and they all are going to be coded differently in your QuickBooks or your NetSuite, right? You have certain things that are spoils, you have certain things that are late shipments, and so on and so forth. And so you sort of need a level of domain expertise to even be able to classify these things normally. So you get a KHE check. It's got 75 different deductions on it. You might be creating 75 different credit memos in your accounting system, in some cases, depending on how you have it set up. And there's a separate process called cash application where you're matching up all of your invoices with all these deductions that came in to just reconcile this payment. So, we're working with a customer right now. The accountant there says she spends the last 4 days of her month every single month, which is almost a full work week, just doing this process manually for all of the different checks that have come in. With Floret, it's literally a one-click sync because we take in all of this data, we know what these charges are, so we can just classify them according to what your accounting system says. And then we sort of have the plumbing in place to where it's going to generate a matching credit memo inside of your accounting system. And on average, it takes us about 2 to 2.5 weeks to stand that up for a brand. So if we start talking to you at the start of a month, by the time you're ready to close that month, you have a solution in place that's going to take one of the most frustrating pieces of your finance and accounting workflow and make it really seamless for brands.
No, that's excellent. And when you gave an example earlier, because it's true, I've seen them in the old school folders on my desk. Getting a deduction or a dispute for like 40 cents, I can only imagine the absolutely galactic negative ROI when that accounting person is probably has to do something to show that they addressed invoice, whatever the number is. But man, that's
40
ridiculous.
cents. I mean, it's a waste of oxygen. It's, it's 40 cents. It's lower than the paper it's printed on. Somebody's got to key in a 40-cent transaction. It's really,
Well, and the other thing from experience, when the deduction management, when it was 100% done by humans, places Tracy and I have worked, I don't know this for a fact, but I would bet I'm right. There are certain retailers or distributors that I think are always testing as to what level of a deduction or a chargeback they can make that a company will just agree to because it's too small to chase.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys solve that because of the way you're set up. You can chase that $56 deduction versus Bruce gets it every 2 weeks from the same account because they've figured out I'm not going to challenge it.
Yeah. And a lot of times that $56 deduction is a $16 deduction with a $40 administrative fee slapped on top. So there's so many different ways that these things manifest themselves. And it's really sort of, the trickle down of all of these different little clauses in your supplier and retailer contracts that create these really messy structures for how these deductions come about. And so it's frustrating for a sales team that's trying to figure out what's our trade spend rate. How much do we actually pay Whole Foods or Albertsons or whoever for this promotion? It's frustrating for a finance team that says, well, this $56 deduction is actually 4 different things rolled into one. How would we even code this correctly? And so it cascades down and just creates complexity for everyone on a team that would be working with something like this. And one of the effects of a software platform like Floret is it just abstracts away all of that weirdness. Sales gets clean reporting in the software. Finance has a one-click sync that's based on their existing setup in their QuickBooks or their NetSuite. And so we're really optimistic. We think, the future of all of these different processes is for any ambitious brand to use software and get rid of this problem so they can focus on what matters most to them, which is growing their brand, differentiating on the marketing, the flavor profile, and everything that they really want to spend all their time thinking about.
Yeah.
Well, one other thing before Tracy continues the discussion, folks, Early on, when Tanay went through the list of charges and how if you send an invoice for $5,000 and you're expecting to be paid $5,000 and it comes back and it's 3,100, if you're a small firm starting out, that is a huge percentage of the revenue you were expecting that does not show up. And now you have to figure out why it didn't, and you have to pursue it, dispute it, etc. So these things, especially when you're really young and a hit below the waterline could be fatal, is why a service like this is really, really useful. Not only can it help you dispute and recover some money, you are not burning all this time doing things that aren't what Tanay just said, differentiating your product, trying to, find the right way to get the word out, searching and working with your contract manufacturers on a better efficacy or flavor profile. So pay attention there. Tracy?
Absolutely. So, Tanay, talk to our audience a little bit about how Floret gets paid and what your top line, 30,000 feet, what's your fee and payment structure? How does it work?
Yeah, for sure. So our pricing structure is very transparent. There are different pricing bands based on your revenue range. Are you a $1 to $5 million brand? Are you 5 to 10, et cetera? And then you can pay to have just the Floret software as one, or you can pay for Floret software plus having us do your disputes. That's the second tier. And then you could pay for a QuickBooks or NetSuite integration on top of that. And so very small brands are looking at an investment of, in some cases, under $10,000 a year for everything. We're going to dispute all your deductions. We're going to integrate into your finance system. We're going to give you this software platform that makes it really easy to manage chargebacks. And then the larger and larger the brands get, you might sort of get into a multiple of that. And we have, very large customers that are happily paying for software that helps maybe 8 to 10 different people on their team do the jobs that they were previously doing by hand. But the most important piece of all of this, again, is it's priced at a level where the median Floret brand gets 3 times as much back in repays than what they pay for the software itself. And so we're really proud of the fact that our pricing relative to our competitors, we feel gives Floret the best bang for its buck profile of any solution on the market.
That's awesome. So the ROI is just tremendous. I love that. Bruce?
So, Tanay, when you guys get an inbound from a brand that thinks they want to work with you guys, especially as you guys grow and you do specialize in helping really small companies, which is awesome, what do you look for in the profile of an account? Do you want to see somebody or a client? Do you want to see someone that's been in business 2 years? They've got at least X revenue. They have 2 retail accounts. What do you and your colleagues look for when you go, you know what? Let's get a meeting with these guys. I think we can help them.
Yep. So we have a pretty even distribution of customers across revenue bands today. Because of some recent growth with larger enterprise customers, but we really do pride ourselves on the fact that we are equally able to serve smaller and emerging brands. I would say the main thing for us that we look for is, are there multiple routes to market for your products? Are you working with multiple distributors or multiple direct retailers? Because that type of complexity is what creates the need for software. If you're just working with one distributor, serving a couple of different, large retailers, we might say in some cases, well, you have a pretty simplistic profile of what you need to look for in terms of chargebacks. It's maybe not even worth the time or monetary investment. But the main thing for us is when a brand reaches out to us with interest in Floret, through our free pilot, we can tell them in a relatively short amount of time how much money we can actually get them back and what the types of deductions are that we can fight for them. And so we're able to be very, very transparent with any customer that comes to us with interest. And there are even times when we'll tell brands, you know what, you've got a process dialed in. You're catching a lot of the stuff. We don't think you need Floret for disputes. And that ends up being mutually beneficial when that's the case as well. So, I think for us, I would highlight the multiple routes to market, and that probably means any brand, certainly above $5 million in revenue, starts to see the scaling problems on the deduction side that make it really onerous.
Excellent. Thank you.
Love the transparency. So if you're a brand or a service provider within CPG, of course, you've got to market yourself and get the word out about your services. So talk to our audience a little bit about how you get the word out about your services. And I know that you've have a couple of collaborations as well. So talk to our audience a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So we use a number of different channels to try to reach out to the community, and we try to be active, helpful participants in the ecosystem. We do webinars. We'll go to trade shows, though we're not going to be table to table haranguing your brand, but we'll be around always answering questions and being part of the community in that capacity. We have a couple of partnerships that we have found to be really beneficial for brands. One is that we are now the exclusive deductions and cash application partner of the Specialty Food Association as of a little bit earlier this month. This is going to give every brand access to our free pilot, as well as some exciting introductory pricing with a couple of free months of Floret thrown in there. And then we also have ecosystem partners like Modus Planning that have really strong software that we think complements Floret very nicely. And so for brands that want to find us, they often find us through that broader ecosystem, and not because someone at Floret is blowing up their phone with cold calls a dozen times a week.
And referrals, I would imagine, as well.
Referrals are great. We've got fantastic advisors and other ecosystem partners that send a lot of business our way.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing more powerful than getting a referral, because that means not only have you kept them happy, you've probably helped them save or make some money. So the person that calls you saying that they've been referred, they probably already have a pretty decent predisposition to actually listen with both ears.
Yeah, we're really gratified whenever one of our existing brands thinks to recommend Floret to another customer. And, fortunately for us now, it happens at least a couple times a quarter. And, we're always happy to bring those brands on board.
Love
Great.
that.
So Tanay, we're starting to wind this down. So just a couple of other topics we'd love to cover with you. So you've had, for a young man, you've had a lot of really interesting career experiences so far. What are some of the best career experiences that either through your hard work and determination or through happenstance you kind of fell into? And how has that kind of shaped where you are right now?
I would have to say that the best career experience I had was working at Uber Eats. This was very early, relatively early in the history of the company, and I had a pretty special position called a launcher. So they would send me to different parts of the country that didn't have Uber Eats set up, and I would be responsible for setting Uber Eats up there. And so on a day-to-day basis, that could be anything from going to restaurants and helping owners set up their iPads, to doing deliveries myself so I could understand how a particular part of the country was structured, doing radio ads, doing panels, writing code as well was a small part of my job. And so all the context switching on a day-to-day basis, just doing whatever needed to be done. And the feeling of flying into a city at the start of a month and it didn't have this service at all, and then flying out at the end of the month and seeing that hundreds or thousands of people could use this platform was super gratifying for me. And I think at the stage of my life in which I was, it gave me a lot of confidence that I could sort of adapt on the fly and do a bunch of different stuff. And it also sort of, when I left that job and moved on to other opportunities, I knew I needed to do something else to scratch that itch. And I think that's ultimately what led me to be a founder. Was the amount of enjoyment I derived from context switching, being independent, and really helping to grow a product or a service.
That is, that's very interesting that's how they would, and maybe they still do it, how they open markets. All right, Tanay, a key follow-up. When you were doing Uber Eats deliveries, what market is the best tipper?
What market is the best? I spent quite a bit of time in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I think those folks are very generous. They're good tippers. They great food town, great spot to hang out. So 2 thumbs up for me on Salt Lake City, Utah.
Great tipper, skiing, and a new hockey team. What more could you ask for? Exactly. Okay, Tracy.
Exactly. So we're heading rounding third and heading home. So Tanay, tell us, who's your favorite sports team, band, or brand, and why you follow them?
Great. Well, I've become a big soccer fan in the last couple of years, Tracy, and I really love this team called Leeds United. I didn't want to support one of the traditional big powerhouses, What I like about Leeds United, first of all, they're owned by the San Francisco 49ers in part, and I'm from the Bay Area. Second, they've got a lot of American players. And third, they're known for playing a reckless style of soccer where they score a lot of goals and they allow a lot of goals. And I find that just so much more fun to watch than these games that end 1-0 or 1-1 that every supposedly sophisticated soccer fan is supposed to enjoy. And so Leeds has been a roller coaster. They get promoted and relegated all the time. They're back in the Champions League this year. They'll probably get relegated again. And so, you know what? No one can accuse me of being a glory hunter. It's a lot of suffering as a Leeds fan. But, you know, I'm happily ensconced in it. And I think it sort of befits my personality that I'm a Leeds guy.
That's like the old Denver Nuggets scores were like 148 to 135. There was no D. Mike D'Antoni, 7 seconds or less.
7 seconds or less, absolutely.
Get the shot up. All right, so Tanay, thank you so much for your time. This is super interesting, and it's an unbelievable service that small emerging and challenger brands can use, because instead of literally suffering through this themselves or having to add into their permanent headcount by hiring a couple of people to chase these as they grow, you guys are right there. So a couple of things here as we wrap. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you to learn more about your firm? And then second, if you want, why don't you tell people how they can go investigate your free demo or assessment? I think that would be really helpful too.
There's a few different channels that I would recommend for getting in touch with us. You can follow Floret on LinkedIn. Our VP of Sales, Greg Esslinger, is a great resource as well on LinkedIn. He's always posting really helpful tips and advice. If you're already in the CPG community, you've probably seen a bunch of his posts, and he can tell you a lot about Floret as well. And then if you want to do our demo, go to www.tryfloret.com, TRY Floret, and you can book a demo over there and talk to me, and we can tell you in 48 hours or so how much money we can put back in your pocket.
And folks, Floret is Floret.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Tanay, thanks again. Tracy, the big finish.
Absolutely, Tanay. This was awesome. I know this is going to be a huge help to small and emerging brands, even challenger and bigger brands. So we really appreciate your time today. And thank you so much, audience, for joining us. Please follow us on our Spotify and Apple podcast, as well as LinkedIn. And we enjoyed this episode today. And thank you again, Tanay.
Yep. Thanks both. I had a great time. Take care.
Good luck out there, folks.